DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, actually especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass. That's the thing you're listening to right now. And we put all of this under one umbrella. If you didn't know the name, let's all say it together. It is Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, objectivity is the new bias. So things are flipping around. I've told you before how social media has become real life and how real life has become social media. Now I'm telling you how objectivity has become the new bias. And I'll explain to you what I mean, of course, through this episode. Before we even get to the intro, let me tell you that I have a text line where I want you to send me a text and tell me the best insight, the most valuable thing you heard, the best quote, the best whatever that you got from today's episode, whether it's a question, a challenge, even if you disagree with me. I want you to text me because they don't have comments here, so you can text me. My number is 305-384-6894. Again, 305-384-6894. And you never know, something that you say might actually it might spark an idea that leads to an episode of the show. Because as a matter of fact, this episode was sparked. The idea was sparked by something that somebody said to me on my text line. Now, during the series where I was deconstructing the concept of anti-racism, which was episodes 1788 through 1791, that 4-part series, I got a text from somebody who said, well, Dre, you're talking about anti-racism here on your show. So how about you offer why don't you talk about the other side of the argument? Because it seems like you're only arguing one side. And the first thing that I thought to myself was that's a ridiculous question. The reason that is a ridiculous question is because the very book that I was discussing in the 4-part anti-racism series, and by the way, if you listen to those 4 episodes and you have not read the book on anti-racism, then it probably doesn't make any sense to you. So you would need to have read the book in order to understand what I'm saying. That's a big hint to all of you right now. Any book that I mention on this show, by the way, if I mention a book, even in passing, you need to go get it and you need to read it. Especially if I'm doing a whole episode around the concept of the book, you probably want to read the book so you can get the full context. And especially if I'm counteracting the points in the book, I was offering a critical review of that book and the very concept that the book was based around. If you haven't read the book, then you probably wouldn't understand what I was saying. It would sound like I'm ragging on this individual, but if you read the book, then you would understand that what I was offering, ironically enough, is the other side. This book is a very popular book. A lot of people have read it, and a lot of people actually agree with it and have co-signed it. I was saying, listen, it's a lot of bullshit in this book. And I explained both sides of it. I explained why some people were co-signing it. I explained why the intended audience for that book was buying into it. I gave all of that context. I said that it wasn't a takedown of the individual who wrote the book, but I was taking down the points made in the book and a lot of the data that was in that book. But anyway, somebody sent me a text and they said, well, it sounds like you're only arguing one side. And the first thing I thought to myself was, how the hell am I only arguing one side? The whole book. Somebody wrote a whole book on the other side. So how am I only arguing? Didn't even make any sense. And the first thing that I thought to myself was this person I was 97% sure this person hadn't read the book, being that they made that comment that they made. And when I engaged further with this person, they told me that they were in the process of reading it after they heard me talk about it. So that confirmed the first thing that I thought. And what I do here, is what I do on this show. Actually, I don't even want to step on any of my points. So let's just get into our points before I give any more explanation. But before I even get to the points, actually, let me say one more thing, not even around that. But this whole topic of objectivity being a new bias, that these days, so many of us become so indoctrinated with a certain idea to which we are emotionally attached that we are not open to listening to what anybody else has to say of anything that may even hint at being contrary to what we believe, contrary to what we've been told, contrary to the silos, the bubbles that we may be living in ourselves. We don't want to hear anybody say anything that is any idea that could live outside of that bubble. And I talked about this in episode 1626, how to know you're in a bubble and how to get out. So any of you that has not heard that episode, or if I said anything in any of these episodes where I've talked about either talked about or touched on politics, race. Those are the two that get people most riled up. Religion is the third, but I never talk about religion because I don't claim a religion, so I don't really have anything to offer that conversation. Anything involving politics or race that you have felt slightly offended by, or you disagree with something that I said, go listen to episode 1626 and see if I'm describing you. Then make sure whatever I refer to, you are actually consuming, not just what I say, but the books that I'm referring to, because if you haven't read the books, you don't have the full context. Therefore, you are unqualified to go back and forth with me or challenge me on anything because you only had a context with which to challenge me. But make sure you're checking if you're in a bubble or not. And the thing about this whole topic, objectivity being a new bias, because people are so emotionally engaged in their own beliefs and opinions that are often not based in fact, but actually based in what they've heard from other people, because many of us are no longer doing the work of actually getting the full information. As a matter of fact, most of us never did the work of getting the full information. We would just go to the news for the information, or we go to the media for the information. And the media used to do that, but as I explained to you all, the media doesn't do that anymore. Nowadays, the media gives it the sensational thing because they have to compete against Instagrams and TikToks and podcasts and YouTube. They have to compete against everybody, whereas back in the day, they didn't have to compete against anyone except the other news networks. So now they don't give us the news, they give us the sensational thing. And I just told you all that, and I told you on episode 1474 to stop watching the news. All right, so if you didn't hear that episode, make sure you go listen to that episode, why you need to stop watching the news, because I tell you how they are no longer telling you the truth. They're telling you what they want you to know. And I just told you in episode 1777, a couple weeks ago, that the truth is never sexy. All right, the truth is usually in a gray area that lies in between the sensational conclusions that people draw. But the thing about the truth is, since it's not sexy, it doesn't sell. It doesn't rate. The truth does not go viral. All right, what goes viral is a sensational headline, but the truth doesn't go viral because it's not sexy enough, it's not emotional enough, and most small-minded people with their short attention spans can't give the time to pay attention to the truth, and this is why you don't hear the truth as much as you used to. So these days, if you want the truth, you got to do your own work. Well, guess what show? What's the name of the show you're listening to right now? So let's get into our points. The topic, once again, is objectivity is the new bias. Point number one. Let me explain something to you all about me that most of you, if you've been listening to this show for even a week, you probably know this. If you've been listening longer than that, or you know me on a off the microphone level, you definitely know this, that I am, quote, logical to a fault, close quote. I had somebody actually say that to me. I had somebody call me annoyingly logical about a week ago. And I said, you're absolutely right. I agree with them. They're right. I am annoyingly logical. I am logical to a fault. And what I mean by that is this. I'm the type of person who can and will and actually insists on arguing either side of damn near anything. Whether we're talking Biden versus Trump, Democrat versus Republican, racism versus anti-racism, what social justice versus wokeness versus whatever, mask versus anti-mask, whatever. I can argue either side of any argument, and I will do so. And I'll do it on the air, I'll do it on the record, and I'll put it out so you can read it, so you can listen to it, you can chop it up, try to take it out of context and hold it against me. I do these things. I've been doing this for a very long time and will continue to do it. This is just who I am as a person. I can tell you why person X, whoever they are, I can tell you why they're great, and I can also tell you why they need to shut up and do less. And all of these things are the very reason why I'm able to carry a solo show like this one right here for 5 years running every single day. The reason I can do this every single day is because this is my angle. It's not that if someone wants to have a solo show, they got to be like me. No, because that's already taken. You got to be like you. But I know what my angle is. I know what it is about me that makes me different from most people, and I know what it is about me that's going to turn some people off and make some people say, okay, I can listen to this guy because, and I know exactly what the because, I know what's going to come after the because I know what my angle is, I know what my approach is, I know what I'm saying that most people ain't saying, couldn't say or wouldn't say even if they wanted to. That's the very reason why I have a solo show. I can carry it because I can see all angles. But again, that's just me. Anybody who knows me knows this to be true. This is not an online persona. This is not, I just decide to be this person when the camera comes on or the microphone turns on. This is just how I am, period, even if there was no social media. So all of that being said, now that we got that out the way, let me tell you what the crazy part is. And that'll take us to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is objectivity is the new bias. Nowadays, seeing both sides of an argument, you're the controversial person. This is the funny thing now. Now, if I come out, let's say somebody comes out and says, right now, as I'm recording this, by the time you hear it, maybe it's already over. But right now, as I'm recording, in Minnesota, there is a court case going on. The person on trial is named Derek Chauvin and the 3 other cops who were on the scene when Mr. George Floyd died in May of 2020. That case is going on right now. It might be over by the time you hear this episode. But I could argue regarding that case. I could tell you why Derek Chauvin should get 20 years in prison. I could also tell you why he could be fully exonerated. I could tell you how it could go either way, and there's a strong argument for either side. The challenge is there are many people, actually most people who have an opinion on this, are so strong on one side or the other of that me, if I walk into the room and say what I just told you, I can make a strong argument for why he should go to jail for 25 years. I can make a strong argument for why he should walk away fully exonerated and just be a free citizen as of the next day. There are people most of the people in that room would be angry at me for offering the side that they don't agree with. This is where we're at right now. And this is crazy to me. Seeing both sides, me, the guy who sees both sides, nobody in the room will like me because everybody's so emotionally on the side of, well, hey, Floyd was on drugs, so he didn't die from the cop. Or, hey, you saw him the guy was kneeling on his neck for damn near 10 minutes. How are you going to say he could possibly be exonerated? Both of those sides right now, people are listening to me right now getting mad for the fact that I told you I could argue either side of this case because you are so strongly on one side, emotionally engaged in that side, you can't possibly believe that someone who you thought was smart 5 minutes ago, you don't think I'm smart anymore, could possibly see something other than what you see. This is where we are now. I'm the controversial person because I'm trying to look at things objectively. Not trying to, but I am successfully looking at things objectively. You wouldn't believe, everyone who's listening to me right now, you would not believe how mad people get when you see the side that they refuse to see. Especially in topics on which this is a specific subset of topics in which this is the case. Anything in which people are emotionally engaged. Now, if they just have an opinion, then they might not be that mad about it. We're talking about who's better between LeBron and Michael Jordan. Maybe you'll argue and go back and forth, but in the end, you don't really care. You're not emotionally engaged in who's better between LeBron and Michael Jordan. It's not like there's a game about to happen or anything like that. There's no contest, there's no trophy for who's better between these two people. So there's no way that this is ever going to be proven. But something along the lines of race, politics, social justice, anything about which people have some emotional buy-in, they don't want to hear anything other than what they already think. And to me, that is a failure in critical thinking. If you only want to hear the side that you already believe in, now if we're talking something that's factually provable, you shouldn't have an issue with somebody having a different opinion because you can factually shut them down and show them how they are incorrect. Now, we are not talking about a topic that is factual, we're just talking about opinions and we're talking about how something is possible, not whether it's going to happen or not, but how something is possible. How it's possible this guy could get off fully exonerated, how it's possible this guy could also get 25 years in jail. We're just talking about what's possible and why it could be possible. No matter what happens, if you're not open to hearing the other side of that, that's a failure in your critical thinking skills. Because for some reason, you have morphed your beliefs into dogma. A belief is, okay, this is just what I think based on what I see, what I know, and what I thought about. And dogma is when you're saying, all right, what I believe is the only way to believe. And therefore, anybody who believes otherwise must be wrong. All right, that's a failure in critical thinking, people. But of course, I'm the guy who would say that, right? When you refuse to see both sides of a situation, you have blinded yourself to the side to which you don't agree. And those blind spots can hurt you. Right? Every blind spot that you have in life, everywhere in life where you are just missing, and you're missing even the ability to look and see what's going on, you're gonna get hit in that blind spot. Any of you watch or play sports, you know that when you're going up against an opponent who is a strong opponent, they're going to probe you for weaknesses. They're going to find where your weaknesses are, and it's going to keep attacking that same weakness over and over again until you do something about it or until you lose, whichever one happens first. If you watch the NBA playoffs, what happens a lot of times down the stretch of a game is these days in the current rendition of basketball that we have is teams run a lot of pick and roll, and they run pick and roll to they run the pick and roll play to isolate the weakest defensive player on the other team. So whoever the weakest defender is on the other team, the team with the ball will just keep running their actions until they get the weakest defender guarding the strongest offensive player. They can just manufacture this and they just keep moving things around until they make it happen. And then that weakest defender has to guard the strongest offensive player, and the team with the ball will just keep scoring points on the other team because they are exploiting this weak defender. And they'll just keep doing it until the other team makes some kind of adjustment. They have to do something different. Or the team that just is doing the exploitation, they're going to win. This is the way that it works. And this is the way that it works in life. That's just a microcosm. If you're a boxer, for example, and every time you get ready to throw a punch, you drop your right hand, you're going to keep getting hit in the face. Because every time you drop that right hand, your opponent's going to be waiting for it. They're going to hit you in the face as soon as you get tense to throw that punch because you keep dropping your right hand. It's going to happen over and over and over again until you fix the problem. This is the way that it works. Again, I'm using sports as an example. This is the way that it works in life. You lack the critical thinking skills to see other sides of an argument, it's going to get used against you in the long run. If your mentality is to choose choice A, and then anybody who doesn't also choose choice A is somehow wrong or dumb or they're morally bankrupt, you have become dogmatic. You have hardened yourself into such a position that you can't see another angle. I want you to remember something. Life is fluid, i.e. it is ever changing. What did Bruce Lee say? Bruce Lee said, you got to be water. You know what water does? You put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. Water is always flowing, or it can crash. Water adjusts to wherever it is. This is why water is the universal solvent. No matter where you put it, it will find a way to adjust to the situation. You need to be the same way. Do not get mentally stuck in any one spot in life. And the more objective you are, the easier it is for you to stay fluid. Don't become hardened into dogma on too many topics in life in which you can't move yourself out. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is objectivity is the new bias. Number 3, what's the purpose of seeing both sides? I mean, why does it even matter, Dre? Why are you even talking about this? What's the purpose of seeing a side with which I don't agree? All right, if I think Jordan is better than LeBron, why do I need to understand why somebody might argue that LeBron is better than Jordan? Why does it matter that I know why a dumb person who thinks LeBron is better than Jordan could actually have that idea? Why do I need to know that? Let me tell you why. Because this is a strategic skill that you pick up. You see, strategic thinkers, you know what they do? They see the whole picture of things. They understand the mentality of their counterparts, not so they can condemn their counterparts as idiots, which is what most shallow thinking, dogmatic thinkers do. They say, oh, anybody who has a different idea, if you voted for Biden, you must be an idiot, or if you voted for Trump, you must be a racist. All right, this is what people who lack strategic thinking skills do. You see the other side, the people who are good strategic thinkers, you see what the other side sees, not so you can condemn them as being dumb, but so you can respect their ability. Yes, you heard me correctly, to respect their ability. If you walk into a boxing ring thinking that your opponent is weak and soft and they're not tough and they can't hit hard, you walk into a boxing ring with that mentality, any of you who's ever done any boxing or knows anything about boxing, tell me what happens. You're going to get knocked the fuck out because you are underestimating your opponent. You go into a basketball game thinking your opponent is weak and they don't have a chance, they're going to beat you. You respect your opponent by respecting the fact that they may be just as good as you are. They might be just as smart as you are. They might even be smarter than you. And that's how they came to a different idea from you, is asking yourself, okay, this person across from me has a completely different, they have the exact opposite opinion of what I have. Now, let me ask myself, being that this person is just as smart as me, how could they have come to that conclusion? How could they have seen the same thing that I've seen and come to a different conclusion? What did they notice that I didn't notice? What question are they asking that I didn't ask? See, this is an open-ended question that many people are unable to ask themselves these days because you've been properly indoctrinated that it's impossible anybody can have a different idea from you. Respect your opponents. Respect the people who don't think the way that you think. Assume that they are just as smart as you are and ask yourself, how could they come to that conclusion? How could they think that, given that they know the same stuff that I know? Maybe they know something that I don't know. Maybe they looked at the same thing I looked at, but they saw it in a different way. What is that different way? And then you go into a conversation with that person, open-minded enough to ask questions and learn why they came to a different conclusion or how they came to a different conclusion, what they saw that you didn't see. This is what open-minded people do. Unfortunately, this is a dying breed. Open-minded individuals who are willing to do this, who have enough respect for people who have different opinions to wonder, instead of condemning, but wonder how they got that opinion. Not telling them that they're racist or stupid or dumb for having that opinion, but wondering how they got the opinion so that they ask questions instead of throwing out accusations. Now ask yourself, which one are you doing? Because your idea is not the only correct way of thinking. Newsflash. Let's recap today's class, which is objectivity is the new bias. As I had somebody reach out to me and say, Dre, it seems like you're only arguing one side of things when it comes to the topic of race, which is a fucking ridiculous thing to say. Anybody who's listened to anything on this show where I've talked about the topic, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. So you text me and you let me know. Again, my number is 305-384-6894. But let's get into what I said here today. Number one, I am logical to a fault. I am guilty of this. I am annoyingly logical. I have been called this by more than one person. I can argue either side of damn near anything, whether we're talking Republican versus Democrat, black versus white, go to jail versus get off fully exonerated, and why somebody is great or why they may need to go away, disappear, never say anything ever again. But I know that this is my angle. I know that this is my approach. This is what I do. This is why I've been able to carry this show every day for 5 years straight. I know what I bring to the table. This is not an online persona. But what's crazy is, point number two, nowadays seeing both sides makes you the controversial individual. It used to be the person who saw both sides was the boring person. Like, all right, yeah, you see everything objectively. Now it's flipped. Now the person who sees both sides must be something wrong with them. I've had many people come to me and say, well, do you support this Republican Party, or do you support Donald Trump, or do you support this candidate, or do you think this, or do you think that, based on the things that I say? Because a lot of the things that I say, I'm like, all right, well, look, I can see this side, I can see this side. So people, because I'm not picking a side, I must somehow not be on one side or another. And or I must somehow be strongly on the other side from what they think, is actually the way that people ask me that question. To me, that's a failure in critical thinking. But of course, I will be the one who says that. But when you see both sides of a situation, when you don't see both sides of a situation, you become blind, and those blind spots will hurt you. If your mentality is, I choose choice A, and anybody who doesn't choose choice A, they're either dumb or wrong, or they're just morally bankrupt. You have become dogmatic. You've hardened yourself into a position. But remember what Bruce Lee said. You put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. You have to always be flowing, mentally flowing. Point number three. What's the purpose of seeing both sides? Who cares? I mean, those other people who think differently from me, they're idiots anyway. Why do I need to care what they think or how they think it? This is because for strategic reasons. For strategic reasons, what Sun Tzu said in The Art of War, if you know yourself and you know the terrain, in half the battles you won't be in peril. If you know yourself and you know the opponent, you will never be in peril. You must know your opponent, not just know that they're an idiot, not just know that they're stupid or look at them as weak. Again, you walk into a boxing ring thinking your opponent is weak, you're going to get knocked out. Or you're going to get carried out of the ring. You walk into a boxing ring respecting that your opponent trained just as hard as you are, they're just as tough, just as smart, and just as skilled as you, and you respect their skill so that you're watching for that hook. All right, that's the way that you look at your opponents, even when they have the quote-unquote wrong idea. How could a person this smart come to a different conclusion from me? Maybe they're smarter than you and you're the idiot. Your idea is not the only correct way of thinking. If you go into life this way, you will be much more open-minded. You will move yourself towards asking more questions than throwing out accusations. And just look at yourself over the course of a day. Are you asking questions or are you throwing out accusations? And if you're throwing out more accusations than you are asking questions, then you must be the smartest person on the planet. But I want you to remember that Socrates realized that he was the smartest person in the world, not because he knew everything, but because he knew nothing. Now, I want you to send me a text and tell me the most valuable insight you got from today's episode. How are you going to change in any way from what you heard here today? My number is 305-384-6894. Once again, 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.